save up to $500 on Viagra.
Little Rock, Arkansas, and in general.
Vraiment des orchestres à travers le monde.
Environmentalists have a tough time believing that a proposed three-phase natural gas pipeline program will end in Rutland. It's easier to believe success of the project and the potential for billions of dollars in cheap fracking profits will lead to more fossil fuel transmission infrastructure in the state and in neighboring states. Paul Burns is Executive Director of Vermont Public Interest Research Group based in Montpelier. This is EntryPoint. I'm Richard Alcott.
I can understand, if I owned a piece of property that somebody wanted to do some fracking on, I'd be irritated. It messes up the water. It's noisy. It's a hell of a mess. I wouldn't, want that to happen in my backyard, certainly. But if it's happening someplace in the Canadian wilderness, why should I care about it?
Well, there are several reasons. I mean, one is that Vermont has already taken a position on fracking, and as you say, we've recognized that it is too dirty, too dangerous, too expensive to take place here. It doesn't make it any cleaner, any safer, any less expensive to do it just because it's in Canada or Pennsylvania or Ohio or any place else. I mean, we've considered the matter about fracked gas here, and we said we don't want any part of it. And this is, in fact, hypocritical to say we're going to dramatically increase the state's reliance on this fracked gas as a means of getting away from oil, which is certainly damaging to our environment and our climate as well. But, there are more than two options here. And choosing between a tank and a Hummer isn't going to give you your best option to get around from an environmental perspective. And there are a lot of better alternatives that we should be turning to.
The pipeline now, is it inevitable that it's going to be coming down here to Rutland? And then it's not going to stop at Rutland if they're successful doing that.
Well, no, I think you're right. I think, who knows how far the plans truly reach. If you were to look beyond phase 3, presumably there's a phase 4, 5, and 6 as well. Perhaps even to reach over beyond International Paper and Ticonderoga to gas lines that may one day exist in New York State, where they could potentially be fracking the Marcellus shale there in New York, and as they are now in Pennsylvania, for instance. So, no, I think anybody would be right to be concerned that this is really just the initial phase of what could be a massive expansion of state reliance on another dirty and unsustainable fossil fuel.
Right. So what you're saying is that it would be bad enough if we're reliant on fracked natural resource or natural gas from another country. That would be bad enough. But the fact that it's not really sustainable, it's not really good for the economy or the environment or for the people.
That's right. And the last thing I think is important to note that, to say that it's the cheaper option, it's somewhat short-sighted, and it's really not looking at all of the potential options available. Again, you've got other alternatives to oil right now, air source heat pumps, for instance, and we should be spending a lot more on building efficiency so that we're not heating the outdoors to begin with. These are things that would make it a lot more cost-effective for people to be heating their homes and buildings, and it would be a much better and safer bet over the long run. I'm talking 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, even 100 years. That's how long we could be locking into this gas pipeline if this infrastructure is built. And at that time, you can't tell me that gas is going to be cheaper than other safer and more sustainable alternatives 50 years out from now. It better be. We better have those alternatives because we need them.
And there's something else, and that's the risk factor. And when you talk to the people at Vermont Gas, they acknowledge that there is certainly a risk factor in building pipelines, of that length through the state. The inevitability of, violent accident occurring, and they accept that risk. So what is the price of a human life or the quality of human life?
Yeah, I think there are undeniable risks to human health, to the environment that come, with these potential gas leaks, and we see that, every week it seems there's an explosion or an accident, some type, somewhere in the country, and it's likely to over time, if we expand these gas lines, there's a greater potential for that kind of thing happening here too. That you just can't deny that.
Paul Burns directs VPIRG, Vermont Public Interest Research Group in Montpelier. You've been listening to EntryPoint.